Paul Campbell, who is the CEO of Cancer Black Care.
Yeah, you got prostate cancer, so I can have a radical prostatectomy when I remove it. I could have radiotherapy, or I could have hormone treatment. And they asked me, what do I want? And I was a bit, oh.
Hey everyone, welcome back again for another episode of Black Women Rising, the podcast, sponsored by our wonderful friends at Palmer's. So today I've got another special guest, someone who I've been wanting to speak to and meet for a while. We've got Mr. Paul Campbell, who is the CEO of Cancer Black Care and is also a prostate cancer survivor. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I've heard a lot about you and your charity, so I'm glad to be here to share my story, my experiences.
Yeah. Do you know what? I was reading your bio and a bit about you, and you've done a lot of things. And I always like to delve into, as the start of these podcasts, because before you had cancer, you were doing so much in the community and have done so much for the community. Taking away being the CEO of CBC, can you tell us just a little bit about you, your life so far as a professional, and obviously head of programs at Future Men?
So I'm one of 8 siblings. My working employment has always been working with marginalised and disadvantaged groups.
Yeah.
I can only do work that I'm passionate about. I can see a vision, work that I can get my teeth stuck into. So working in homelessness, working with drugs and alcohol, working with serious youth violence, working with mental health, working with physical health. These are the roles I've undertaken in my previous employments, and these are the roles that I've enjoyed doing. Giving back, effecting positive change, and especially working with young boys. In my last job at Future Men, I worked with a lot of serious youth violence, worked in a lot of pupil referral units, alternative provisions, and working with young men and young boys that needed guidance, that needed a mentor, and that was something that I took great pride in. It excited me, the vision pulled me, and I was in that position for around 15 years.
Wow.
And in my spare time, I used to coach boxing, I used to love coaching boxing, but once things started to change, I had to give that up. But I still enjoy keeping fit and spending time with my loved ones and my family.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get into your family a bit later, but can you tell us about your cancer diagnosis and when that was, and even the symptoms that made you want to go and get checked out?
So throughout my life, I've always been into health and fitness. I've competed at a very high level in physical combat sports. And one day I saw an advert on TV. I was 40 years old, and the advert said, if you're over 40, you're entitled to a free men's health check. It was like an MLT. Yeah. And I was like, I need to do that. So it took me 2 years to eventually go to my GP and make this appointment. So I rock up to the GP, spoke to the receptionist, and I said that I'm here for a men's health check. I explained to her that I saw an advert on TV and I'd like the full works. And then she proceeded to ask me, what was wrong with you? And I was like, externally, I don't think anything's wrong, but internally, I don't know what's going on. And then she said, well, we're not going to give you a test because you've said nothing's wrong. And I was like, the advert didn't say that. Yeah. The advert said blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So I became very assertive and very pushy. I started to raise my voice, and, you know, I was calling for the manager here and the manager there, and then someone more senior came out. I explained what I'd seen on TV and heard, and I explained how your receptionist was being very obstinate and wouldn't allow me to book this appointment, and I was able to have the appointment. So then they asked me what they wanted to test, and I was like, well, what you would normally test everything. And I remember even during my blood test, they were very aggressive with me. It's like they didn't like me. So I continued to go back for tests every year, and I found out I was a diabetic, no symptoms. And then I left that GP and went to another GP service, which was local, and I continued to get the health checks, the blood test, and that's when they found something in my system. They kept on asking me questions about, are you having trouble urinating? Do you have problems with your back passage? Do you have this symptom? And I was like, nope, 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 nope. And I had to keep on going back every 3 months and every 6 months for further blood tests. And they were saying there was nothing wrong, but I thought something was wrong. And then it got accelerated. I was sent to the hospital, and this is when they said to me that I had to have a biopsy. And this is when they said to me that, you know, you got a raised PSA, you got prostate cancer. So had I not had been pushy and assertive in the first place,
exactly,
I would never have found out because I didn't have any symptoms, which was hugely concerning to me, concerning to me.
And what was the process from when you first went to that appointment to when you was diagnosed?
I went to my GP about 4 or 5 times for blood tests, and it kept on going up. And then I was referred to a local hospital to have further blood tests.
Wow.
I had a few internal checks as well, and then they kind of and I kind of done a bit of reading, and I kind of felt it for myself that you know what, this is what's happening to me. So when they told me, I kind of self-diagnosed myself, so it wasn't that much of a hit because based on what they were saying, and more importantly what they weren't saying, I kind of deduced the information for myself.
God, so the whole process was what, months or a year or?
It was aggressively quick.
Yeah.
I thought it was aggressively quick, and from one appointment, I had 3 options to 2 options within a 2-week period, and because prostate cancer is a slow burner, but mine went aggressive quite quickly. Yeah, so it was like I didn't have time to process it. I didn't really have time to think. I didn't have time to stop because it was letters, emails, phone calls. And thinking back, I think I preferred it that way. Yeah. Because I didn't want to be in my own headspace.
Absolutely.
And by the time I was in my own headspace, that's when all of the other kind of issues come along with your mental well-being, because you're literally thinking, hold on, I'm one of those people that have cancer.
Were you cancer aware beforehand?
No.
Not at all?
I didn't see any of the materials that I see now that are literally everywhere. Yeah. In my optics, I didn't see anything about prostate cancer. I didn't see nothing at all. So I was totally blinded to it at all. To everything that was out there, just totally went past me. Where I lived in my community, there wasn't any information that I could see that I felt, oh, that's talking to me. Actually, I used to watch Soccer Saturday, and I used to see the prostate cancer badge man. I saw that, and I always wondered what it was. Yeah. But I didn't know what it was at the time.
What was going through your mind when you was diagnosed?
Am I gonna die? What am I gonna tell my kids? I'm fit, I'm healthy, I don't smoke. Why has this happened to me? And I didn't understand it. I didn't understand what was happening. And at that time, I hadn't known anyone in my family or in my immediate circles that had cancer. So there wasn't anyone immediately to speak to about my diagnosis. And I remember the oncologist told me not to go online. They gave me information to read and to digest, but they were very clear that I shouldn't go online with any of this information. So it was a lonely space. It was a lonely place because I didn't know what to do and who to turn to and what to do with this information I've just been given. So it was quite heavy for me at that time to have and to hold that. And that's why I said I quite like the fact that everything was so quick and so aggressive, because it meant I didn't have time to be in my own headspace to digest this. Knowing what I know now, I would have done things differently and asked more questions and taken more time to make the decisions that I'd made. And
what did treatment look like for you?
I remember when they said to me, you got prostate cancer, so I can have a radical prostatectomy where they remove it. I could have radiotherapy, or I could have hormone treatment. And they asked me, what do I want? And I was a bit, and I'm thinking, this isn't my area of expertise.
Exactly. I don't know.
You've not presented me with any information, so how can you put me on the spot like that? I have no idea. At this time and at this juncture, you're gonna have to tell me, based on what you've seen from me and my results, what you think is the most suitable idea for me, and then I can go back and research it. But you got to ask, I was a bit kind of annoyed that they would ask me that question. 2 months ago, I didn't even know what my prostate was.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? At that time, I didn't know what radiotherapy was. Yeah. I didn't know what hormone treatment was. So they sat down and they said, based on, my age and kind of the severity of my prostate, they believe that if they remove it, that would eradicate the problem. And so that was the option that we went for, a robotic radical prostatectomy, which just removes the prostate.
Yeah. And did you have to have any hormone treatment or therapy after that?
14 months after the robotic radical prostatectomy, I had to have radiotherapy for 7 weeks. So 7 weeks going to the hospital to undergo radiotherapy. This was during COVID. I hated it because everyone was masked up. There were no visitors allowed in hospital at the time. So everyone you saw in that hospital was fighting their own battle of cancer.
Absolutely.
Old, young, and there was even an occasion that I met my sister in the hospital as well, and we didn't know that we had appointments on the same day, and as well as the radiotherapy, I had to take the hormone medication as well, which just
Oh my God.
which just turned me inside out. So you know, the radiotherapy and the hormone treatment were very aggressive to my body. You know, I struggled mentally throughout that period, and I wasn't given the accurate information as to how I would be affected by the radiotherapy in conjunction with the hormone treatment. So my body and my mental health took a real battering throughout that process, and being locked down as well. It was, you know, I had a lot of, you know, online appointments, telephone consultations, and it was difficult for me to be in a space to reach out to people. So I kind of suffered in silence during that period, which was really hard as well.
I can only imagine, particularly because you speak so much about sports and fitness and being body aware and all of those things that most of us couldn't even do anyway in lockdown, let alone with this diagnosis as well. So you have 8 siblings, and 2 of them, one of them who I know really well, have had cancer before. So was that before or after your diagnosis?
So I was the first family member to be diagnosed with cancer, and when I eventually told my family, you know, my brother went to get checked, and he found out that he was diagnosed with prostate cancer.
Wow.
When my little sister heard that I had prostate cancer, she went to reach for the telephone to phone me, and that's when she realised that she had a lump. At that exact time, she went to phone me. So we were all diagnosed in 2019 with different cancers, and then a year or 2 later, I had cousins in London and cousins in Birmingham that were also diagnosed with prostate and breast cancer as well.
That is one incredible story. I mean, we could talk about that for hours, but I think in saying that, you know, I talk a lot about breast cancer because obviously that's the cancer I know, and most women that come through Black Women Rising have had breast cancer, and we're seeing it of all ages. You've worked with Prostate Cancer UK, and obviously you've got your new role, which we'll come on to now, but a lot of people I talk to, particularly Black men, don't even know what prostate cancer is. And these alarming figures that we're seeing now being drummed about, what did they say, 1 in 4?
1 in 4.
1 in 4 Black men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer. And some people don't even know what prostate cancer is. Can you tell us what prostate cancer is?
Well, it's a disease that Black men are more susceptible than white men and Asian men. It's you know, my boss, you know, Professor Frank Chinabungondo, he's the researcher whose research identified that Black men were more susceptible to prostate cancer. And I think as Black men, we don't do enough to look after ourselves and find out the information about prostate cancer. Is that because the information is it where we are? Is it because of the racial disparities in the NHS and the healthcare system? Are we doing enough to look after ourselves and reach out to have access to prostate cancer? So it's a disease. I'm not a medical professional. My experience and expertise come from lived experience through me and my family, and now being in a fortuitous position to run a charity and lead from the front to raise more awareness about.
But do you know what? I'm going to be frank with you. A lot of people don't even know where their prostate is.
Yeah.
Like that's how mad it is. Like some people have said that, like they don't even know. And I feel like, what do you feel like in terms of like the education is like out in the community about it? Because you know, trying to have these conversations, like even me with like my brothers and things like that, people don't even want to go down that route. And what I remember being in a conference once, and they were saying about it being one of the embarrassing cancers. Is it that? Is that how it's seen?
I think for me at my age, I was embarrassed when they spoke to me about my prostate cancer, when I had to have an internal check. You know, I wanted to be better, I wanted to be well.
Of course.
I think, you know, this should be spoken about a lot more. I know in the PSHE lessons in the secondary school, they talk to the girls about breast cancer.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe this is where they need to start talking to the young men about prostate cancer and planting a seed. You know, and one of the things that Cancer Black Care that we're going to be doing is start to target younger men so that they can talk to their fathers and their grandfathers about prostate cancer and where the prostate is, and that black men are more susceptible because you know, men are dying.
Absolutely.
And by that, and you know, the check is a blood test.
Yeah.
You know, there are a lot of taboos about, you know, an internal check, and it may or may not come. And I think we're actually going to move more to MRI scans, which is a lot more better to identify, you know, whether that individual has prostate cancer. So there is a lot of fear, there is a lot of taboo, but we've got to keep on, you know, pushing out the messages about, you know, this is about saving lives. You know?
Well, I was going to come on to that because obviously you have come from this 14 years at Future Men, and you have now come on over to CBC, Cancer Black Care, as a CEO. What made you come over to this work, and what made you want to come over and become the CEO of a charity that you knew that there was a lot of work to be done? What was your drive behind it?
I think that before I started at Cancer Black Care, I was volunteering for Prostate Cancer UK, and I was volunteering for Prostate Cancer Research and the Men's Health Forum, and I did this because of the challenges and the difficulties I faced during my journry. Throughout my journey, I didn't see anyone that looked like me. Every environment I went to, I was the youngest person in there. I was being asked, "Are you in the right place?" Often and always. And I wanted to speak up for myself, and by talking up for myself, I'm speaking up for those people that can't speak for themselves. Yeah. So I was happy in my last job working, you know, at Future Men, and then someone presented this opportunity in front of me, you know, to lead Cancer Black Care. And when I read the job spec and the job role and what it entailed, I was like, tick, 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 tick. Yeah. I hadn't applied for a job in about 30 years. Yeah. So it was a nerve-wracking kind of interview process for me. And then it was fine, I did it. And then I remember when Frank called me, and I was like, why would Frank call me to tell me I haven't got the job? And it was obviously the opposite news. And I was ecstatic, and you know, I'm here still today.
And what's it? First and foremost, can you tell us what the aims and objectives for anyone that doesn't know about CBC?
So we empower, we educate, we mobilise, we influence, and we raise awareness about cancers to black people and people of colour. Not exclusively. We want to improve outcomes and experiences for black people and people of colour in and around cancers. We want to provide culturally appropriate information that considers cultural diversity. We want to lobby, campaign. We want to work with other cancer agencies to reduce cancer within the black people and people of colour. So it's everything around, you know, reducing, you know, befriending, advocacy, counselling services, just making sure that the information is out there and it's in the right places and spaces. Absolutely.
And what's it been like? You've been in role for just over 6 months. What's it been like?
It's quite challenging, it's quite enjoyable. It can be lonely at times, it's full on. The first month was really slow, but since then it's really taken off. I've met some amazing people on the journey. Never created a website before, that's quite interesting. Updating policies and procedures, creating all of the social media platforms and kind of responding is painstaking, and it's a long task. Again, you know, running our volunteers groups and you know, seeing the projects that we have. It's been quite tough. Yeah. You know, because I'm doing quite a bit of it by myself, and it's enjoyable in parts, but it's necessary. Yeah. And looking ahead to what the other services and charities are doing, I'm quite I'm quite sure that in a couple of months we're going to be right up with them side by side, promoting the good work of Cancer Black Care.
Yeah, and I always like these talks because this is like CEO to CEO, right? Like I love this because it is a lonely place. So when you meet people who are also running their own charities and stuff like that, I always find it really interesting because I feel like we all say the same thing. It is very lonely. You could be surrounded by so many helpers and volunteers, but actually the responsibility that you have to pay everyone's wages, to make sure everything is just like being run like a tight ship without having usually a lot of support and infrastructure in place is taxing, right?
No, absolutely. So it's very taxing. It's very new for me. So it's a new way of working, an interesting way of working, and I'm being supported by some amazing people around me. Thank you for having me on this podcast as well. And it's an amazing community to be in. That we're effecting change and changing lives, and cancer is going to affect 1 in 2 people. So for me, it's about making sure that the information that we have on our platforms and our websites is appropriate, accurate. Like I said, considers cultural diversity, and our information is in the right place. But I love being a CEO. This is my first role as a CEO, and right now I'd give myself like a good 6.5. But there's more to come from me, and there's more to come from Cancer Black Care.
Yeah, and I feel like it's nice because even like you starting and then me meeting you and other people like Judith and stuff like that, I do think there's like this new wave of us going, we all need to work together, we're all doing the same thing, we're all achieving the same trying to achieve the same goals, and we've all got our own separate sort of communities, but we're all like, actually we're all doing the same thing. Can we find space and time to come together at times and sing from the same hymn sheet, do you know what I mean? Which I think has been missing for so long.
I think that makes sense for us to come together and do some joint work and share and use our resources so that we can increase our reach. Because individually, we've all got our members and we've all got our captive audiences. But together, we could be...
We could be a powerhouse.
The adventures, so...
But also as well, provide support for each other because, we're all going through different things at different times, and so I feel like it's quite powerful to be able to have maybe a forum where we can all be like, do you know, I went through this, and it's like, yeah, well, this is what I did, do you know what I mean? And I think that is something that's definitely been missing.
I think that makes sense, and for me, being the newbie here, I'm the one that's going to be leaning on you guys the most because, like I said, I'm new and I'm learning, I'm on the job training, and you guys have been, established a lot longer than I have. Cancer Black Care has been around since 1996, but I've only been in this role for 6-7 months, so I'm literally learning on the job, and having someone that I can reach out to, a forum when I can share and vent, that will be like gold dust for me in this current situation that I'm in.
I was talking to Judith about it, and I was like, we've got to get something, even if it's like a monthly thing. We've got to do something where we can come and vent, And I'm going to be real, and I always keep it real, but it's a space that's needed because I can't relate to my counterparts who are white, who are running organisations, and they're heads of white-led organisations. I can't relate. I don't have space for that. It's a very, very different battle. I talk a lot about when I've gone on television and been given these wonderful opportunities, which we know are great, and they're fantastic. But I know, like, each time I've done it, we've always had to have a PR company behind Black Women Rising in October, Black History Month, because we know when we're out there putting stuff out about our charity, we're going to get trolled. I get sent all types of racist messages. I get horrifically trolled for talking up about the care and the rights for people of colour. And I know it shouldn't have to be that way, but that is the way that it is. So in a sense, our experiences are so unique as these leaders of this organisation. And one thing I've had to garnish after, over nearly 3 years ago, I had a horrendous breakdown of burnout, running Black Women Rising. And I guess my big thing is around just self-care, and how making sure that we sort of look after yourself and making sure you look after yourself. And how do you do that? What pointers do you have for anyone else that might, you've said it from a fitness background, whatever, how do you, because actually exercise and yoga and things like that have really helped me. What about yourself?
I think for me, kind of working in this environment and being a cancer conqueror and working with cancers day in and day out, I need to be in an environment, a clinical supervision environment where I can take care of myself and have an opportunity to vent and talk about my week, any things that have triggered me, I think is important. I'm at the majority of the times I'm okay.
Yeah.
But there are moments when I'm triggered and I'm taken back into those dark spaces. I think the one thing about cancer is that because of how you present, people think that you're okay, but you know, my energy will never be the same. My body will never be the same.
Exactly.
And my personality, you know, will never be the same. And I think that people just think that because you look a particular way, you've bounced back.
I know.
And that's just not the case. And no matter how many times you bang on the door, that's not the case. People just assume because you present a certain way.
I know.
Look at Leanne, look how gorgeous she looks. She's all right, but
Yeah.
deep down, we're still fighting with
still
those.
fighting.
Yeah, the trauma of
Yeah.
what has happened, and you know, my journey will continue, and my siblings' journeys will continue. So for me, having that space to talk to someone about my journey and my ongoing journey, and being able to talk about maybe things that have happened in sessions or in work, so I don't take it on board, because I don't want my cup to get full. I've been in that situation before, and I knew what it did to me, and I don't want to be in that space again. So you know, my well-being is talking about my journey, myself, my experiences. You know, so I can make sure I can empty my cup, so not to become unwell.
Overwhelmed.
Whilst keeping up the healthy eating and the dietary requirements and the gym stuff as well.
Everything you said there is exactly true. I just totally relate exactly that. And I guess it's, you know, a lot of people do come into the space and they sort of say, you know, they do think that. And I spoke about that a lot, about how you go into survivorship, you know, you said it, Cancer Conqueror, love that, never heard of that one. And they assume that you're okay. And I say it all the time, actually, is what we experience a lot in the black communities. We experience ageism first and foremost. A lot of people think that we're a lot, you know, younger than what we are and whatever. So, and that can cross boards, especially as CEOs, when you go into meetings for funding and people talk down to you and all of that. You experience all of that. But particularly in survivorship, your hair grows back, go back to maybe even the same weight you were or whatever, and they assume that you're okay and you're not.
Yeah.
And navigating that is really difficult. And then being the head of an organisation where you're also trying to help and empower, like you said, people, navigating that as well is hard.
No, it's a difficult challenge, and it's an interesting challenge, and something come up to manage and to handle, and again, you know, being in this space, and like I said, having the opportunity and the fortitude to lead from the front gives me a certain amount of privilege, and I intend to use that in privilege to enhance my role and my position, and work with black people and people of colour, and make sure that you know, that we are giving them access to the information that is necessary, you know, making sure that, you know, they're not kind of dying from treatable and preventable diseases, and removing the fear, the misunderstanding and the bitterness, and just making sure that they have access to the information that is necessary, you know, supportive, and, you know, in the right tone.
Well, they are very, very lucky to have you on board, and with all your expertise. And like I said, I was reading your bio and all the amazing things that you've done before, and coming into the space with all of that knowledge and experience. I mean, I look forward to the future of seeing CBC build up. Tell me, what is in the future? Could you tell us any little sneaky peeks of anything coming up?
Cancer Black Care, we had offices in Manchester, with offices in Birmingham, with offices in Dalston, with offices in Brent, and we had offices in Campbell. So the plan is to recreate that.
Yes.
We had members groups in South, East, North and West, and the plan is to recreate that. We had a staff team, you know, of just under 20 staff, and the plan is to recreate that.
Brilliant.
You know, we've got a new website coming, you know, our style guide and branding is out. We are out on, you know, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, all at Cancer Black Care. We have more media videos coming out. Myself, my brother, my sister, we're all diagnosed in the same year. So we're going to be doing a series of podcasts as to what that looked like and how that affected us, our family, our siblings. So there's a lot of interesting and exciting things coming. We're going to be having events, and we're going to be doing podcasts like this. I'm looking at what everyone's doing. You know, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I'm looking what everyone's doing, and I'm looking at what we can do and potentially how we could do that better. But at the end of the day, it's about our members in the communities, and it's about serving them and making sure that they have access to the information that we're putting out there.
And also, you know, it's great because it's good that you've got places to look at and go, actually, they're doing that. How can we do that? And also, that serves as inspiration, right?
In collaboration as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think you could never have enough.
Absolutely.
You know, like I always say when people are like, oh, but, you know, I don't want to do a podcast because you guys have done it. And I'm like, mate, there's so many voices. Yeah. The more voices that get flooded, and the more, even the charities, the more charities that are out there, or community programs, who cares? Yeah. Do it, because the more we do it, the more that our voices are heard.
Absolutely. So when you called me on here, I was like, oh my God, I've heard of Leanne. I was so excited. You know, I was excited that my sister had spoken about you because she'd done work about you in the past. So it's a start, and you know, I'm all about collaboration and working with other services that can enhance what we're doing. And, and if that's the case, then you know, whenever you call me, I'm going to be there. Yeah, and bring us along board with everything that you're doing, especially your little, you know, the tour around the UK. I can't even think about coming out of South London yet with what we're doing because it's just mad. But you know, I'll be. We've got members in other places in the UK, and it's like, how do we get to them? I'd love to do something, but I don't know how. So maybe we can talk about how that
piggy bank on you guys and come and, you know, do something.
Most definitely.
And we do it together.
Most definitely. Thank you, Paul. You're amazing, and you've been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. And for anyone that doesn't know you or whatever, where can they find you? Cancer Black Care on all of the social media outlets. Brilliant. And I've seen one of the things I wanted to say, all the new branding, is that you? That's my looks brand. Amazing. Thank you. Love it. I've seen all the lovely branding and everything. It all looks great. So you can check Paul out at Cancer Black Care, and he's just been an incredible guest. Just before you go, Paul, there's something I've been doing with every guest, okay? So I've got 2 boxes here. Here is like a statement, a piece of advice, and here is an affirmation. And I want you to pick a card. What one do you want? An affirmation or a statement? I'm going for a statement. Yeah, okay, cool. They've all been shuffled. You just pick one from the top. Okay, have a read. Okay. What did it say? I welcome abundance, and I will pay attention to the guidance I receive. I love that. Relate to you in any way? Absolutely. Love that. I welcome abundance, and I'll pay attention to the guidance I receive. Yeah. A lot of our conversation comes into this. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Especially when it comes to abundance. Paul, that is your card. And I have got, wouldn't be a Palmer's podcast without giving you a Palmer's goodie bag. So there you are, with all the goodies that are featured here. That is yours. Thank you very much. You are more than welcome. Enjoy. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for having me.